Everyone's talking about DL Mexican fathers, and it kind of reminds me of this research study that people might find interesting called No One Saw Us: Reputation as an Axis of Sexual Identity. And it's based on ethnographic fieldwork conducted in a rural town in Mexico. So, not the Mexican American context, but still helpful for thinking about reputation. What the investigators did was they looked at the gendered social organization of marital infidelity. So, how infidelity was understood and culturally coded for men, for women, and whether or not they had sex with other men or women. And the authors here were kind of trying to challenge the idea that hegemonic Western gay and lesbian categories are globally meaningful. They had collaborators looking at sexuality like in 5 different countries. And they argue that sometimes it's helpful to look not just at who people hook up with, but who the audience for their behavior is and what they are allowed to see or know. And so, for example, in this town, they talk about 2 labels that men were categorized with: hombres normales, or normal guys, and maricones, or F slurs, for guys who are effeminate and bottom. And as they point out, there are men who are known to have same sex partnerships with other men, but because their partners are very traditionally feminine and they are traditionally masculine, they can still earn the label of normal guy. And other men were able to keep that label, even though they would frequently, go into their bathroom with their buddy and give a little down at the bar every now and then. They have a wife, no one really knew about it, or it was kept so private that it didn't disrupt society, and so it wasn't, a big deal. Meanwhile, and perhaps unsurprisingly, women were afforded a lot less grace. An older man named Degollado, who has considerable same sex experience, talked about how for women, if they're known to be cheating after getting married, people will collectively participate in enacting social death, shunning her, shaming her, etc. And so women were afforded a lot less flexibility when it came to being labeled as recogida, or proper, or sinvergüenza, or shameless. There's been a ton of online discourse lately about DL men and men who have sex with men and whether they're out about it or not and married or not and blah, blah, blah. And each of those conversations varies based on cultural subgroup and geography and all sorts of factors. And as people weigh in on these things, as they are wont to do, it might be helpful to think about the ways we categorize, the dimensions of sexuality that we emphasize, about gender differences and expression and performance, and, especially relevant, reputation. And I would also love to hear from Mexican folks if this study kind of resonates with what you see about gender and sexuality, especially among adult men, or if it misses the mark, or if some of these dynamics are just not comparable between Mexico and the US context.